Somewhere in the middle of the two extremes lies a world of open discourse. Probing the depths of the in-between. Welcome to Gray Matters Radio with your host, Michael Devine.
Hello, everybody. Michael Devine, Gray Matters Radio. Having a little bit of technical difficulties there, but that's what you get when you're actually going to do your own radio show for the first time. But hey, we got everything working out great right now. Leon Cradle, you there with us, buddy?
Yes, sir. I'm here. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. So, you know what's kind of cool when you get to do your own radio show? It's cool. You have like this really cool kind of music, and you're kind of sitting there going like, yeah, this is like my theme song. And then you're like, wow, actually, I get to have my own theme song. It's dope. I mean, get to bob your head to it. It's amazing. So, so how are you doing? So we're really happy to have Leon Cradle here today. Today's gonna be a really interesting kind of show. Last week, Leon, I don't know if you kind of listened much to what we were doing, but we kind of set the stage for what Gray Matters Radio is going to be all about. It's kind of like our mission statement. And, we were trying to figure out, like, where's a really good place to start? Because there's so many issues, I think, that are really kind of, affecting the country, I think. And so we kind of thought, race was a really big, important one to kind of start off with. And hey, Leon, how long have we known each other for?
Probably good part of 20 years,
Gosh.
If not more, 21.
That's like a really long time, isn't it?
Yeah, so, I mean, so for, part of a lifetime, man.
Yeah,
Half a lifetime.
And that's like the interesting thing. Like we were, how Leon and I kind of got talking about this. Leon, literally, we were just, you called me just to kind of shoot the shit pretty much. And then we just started going in, and then, we kind of just started talking about the podcasting, and we just started basically talking about race in America and even growing up. And what was really interesting was that, when I kind of started talking to you about, racism, it's hard for me because, me being white, and you can't really see Leon, but Leon is a black gentleman. And Leon, you grew up in the suburbs of Worthington. And it was funny because I can't remember how you worded it. You're like, oh, there's probably like, maybe 20 black guys that went to my school. And then you were talking with a good friend. He's like, nah, man, there's like a couple. And even you were like, well, okay, maybe there weren't that many. I mean, and that's the thing where growing up, it was so interesting thinking about race, because I almost feel as though, maybe it's just me, but I almost kind of feel as though we were kind of brought up to where racism, I mean, it was something that you knew existed, but maybe it was, like in the South, or maybe it was something that was a long time ago, or something that was just real ignorance. And then when, the last so many years, especially when Obama was president, and then racism really started kind of trickling out again, it was almost like, was it always kind of there and just never really knowing it? I mean, Leon, from your perspective, I mean, like when you've seen what's been going on over the last like 8 years with race, I mean, what has your perspective kind of been like given your background?
I mean, obviously racism's never gone anywhere. I mean, it's been around for, generations. But, just the simple fact that, even when, stemming from Obama, and then the new platform, I mean, with social media, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. A lot of people use their First Amendment right and, the freedom of speech, and they exercise their right to say whatever they want. And, with today, internet and computers and all that, information travels fast. So, it gives those people that felt like for, I guess, years, they didn't have a voice to say whatever they want. With the new platforms, it gives people the right to say whatever they want, essentially.
I mean, like, because the thing that I want man, like you never talked about race at all. I don't ever remember you talking about, someone said this to me, or this is something that kind of happened to me. I just, even like with your brothers and a lot of people you hung out with, I never ever really heard anyone talking about it. Was it just something that no one really talked about? Was it something that was really going on, or has there really been a change? Has there really been an increase in these racist incidents? I mean, what are your thoughts?
It was definitely going on. I mean, I'm not going to say that, growing up in the minority, one of a few. Not saying like, it was bad. I mean, but, with any place that you're at, you're going to come across that. There's going to be people there that are, going to want to try to say things that are hurtful. But I definitely credit, a lot of the stuff to, upbringing. Making sure that, we knew who we were and, you're not going to let what someone else is going to say to you affect you. But, as we got older, that's, with the boom of, internet and all that stuff, like I said, information travels fast now with camera phones. I mean, you can say something right now and, people know about it in Morocco in 5 seconds. So, the power of, power of phones, the power of cameras, the power of social media.
I mean, do you almost think that the incidences really haven't gone up? It's just purely the fact that people are now videotaping it and really seeing how people are being treated in this country?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, back when we were all coming up, I mean, hell, we had pagers, hey, hit me on the hip, like, until we were, out of high school going into college years, did, even like cell phones become more readily available. I mean, yeah, they were expensive, for plans, but, you didn't have access to get the information out there. But, it's crazy because every day you turn the TV on or you read something online, you see about these incidents all over the country, all over the place that have to deal with race. And I mean, have we not gone? I mean, I do realize that, we're not that far from, the civil rights movement and all that stuff. But, it comes a time where, we as the people need to start saying, hey, look, enough's enough. I mean, there's more of us that probably think alike than that think differently.
But I think that's an interesting point you kind of brought up where it's like, hey, Mike, this stuff has been going on. People are just recording it. So that kind of begs the question of, is that something you just never ever brought up with us? I know it's kind of like a personal question, but it's like one of those, like, hey, like it almost feel, bad. It's like, why didn't we not know some of these things were kind of going on? Or is it just, I mean, what is it? Is that something that's just really difficult to talk about with kind of like your white friends, basically, of, hey man, this is something that happened to me today?
Nah, because, I just think that, especially back then, we were kids, you haven't really seen anything yet. We were still wet behind the ear per se. So, when we're all together, we're just hanging out, doing what, young adults, kids do, hanging out, playing games, wrestling, going, driving our cars around, just doing the things that kids do. I think, with anything, and, when you're comfortable, I mean, there's certain things there's no need to say. It's not like I had to worry about you guys calling me something out my name, and having to deal with that. That never happened. You never have to worry about that stuff, and that just comes down to, personal character. We, like I said, we had a very diverse group of friends. I mean, yeah, I was, the token per se, but hey, we were all cool. That's the cool thing about, our band of brothers.
And that's where I think what was really cool about, with all this kind of growing up and maybe having that, that naivety or just really not thinking about that too much, because like we would ask each other questions. We always made jokes. I was like the token Jewish kid. It'd always be like, why do you guys do that? It seems like we were able to have honest conversations, even if it was like inquisitiveness. It's like, what is the deal with that? And it seems like that's something that we really can't even do anymore. I mean, a case in point, this is something that happened up in our neck of the woods. So there was I guess we've actually had a lot of like panhandling up where we're kind of at up here in the suburbs of Columbus. And we've had a lot of these incidences where people have been following a lot of moms, for whatever reason, why moms with children. And then so a lot of them are going into the stores and basically going to the managers like, hey, I'm feeling really uncomfortable. And so they haven't really done much about it. And literally the other day, one person walked in to complain, and then while they were complaining, two other people walked in saying the same person went and was accosting them, basically making them feel really uncomfortable. And then so it was on Facebook. There's a page that people have set up to talk about some of these incidences that are going on because the cops really aren't doing much of anything. And so when someone asks them to describe the person, they describe them as a larger African-American man. And literally within, it was like one comment was pretty like, oh, wow, like, we need to report this. And then the ones after that were, why'd you have to describe him as black? That's racist. You shouldn't be doing that. You should take the post down. And it got so ugly, the person eventually ended up deleting the post. And when Leon and I were kind of talking about the show, that I texted him like right away. I'm like, dude, like, can you, what was the person supposed to do? And that literally was your response to what I said. And it's like, and we were making jokes. It's like, well, were you supposed to identify the person as like an RGB color code number 516129? And Leon, I mean, like that's, and so, I mean, as a black man, when you hear that, I mean, really, what goes through your mind where that's being thrown out as racism compared to maybe some other experiences you've had or other people have had?
Yeah, I don't see how. I mean, how else are you going to describe a person? I didn't get a good look at them. I mean, that's the only other alternative you have. They're either, African American, Caucasian, Mexican American. I mean, there's so many different things out there. You're supposed to tell them by their actual racial groups, but like again, I mean, a lot of people are sensitive about a lot of things, but a lot of people just, I think, say comments just to start some kind of debate or, just to throw some fuel into the fire, just to see what people say. But it's interesting. I mean, I find myself doing that too. If I come across an article about something, I never comment, but I just scroll through the little comments. I mean, it's interesting to see some of the nasty things that people really do say, behind a keyboard. How many people go out there every day and say that in public? I mean, does it happen? Yeah, of course it happens. Some cases get caught on film, some don't. But a lot of people, hide behind the keyboard and say the things. It's funny because, I was talking to a friend and was having the conversation, about like the radio show and all that stuff. And I made the point. I said, well, a lot of people almost have that, mob mentality, whether it's, three friends together that want to gang up on, some other person, whatever it may be. That's some of the things that happen these days. Because how many times you hear about cases when, someone goes into a bar in, a minority part of the neighborhood, happens to be a white guy, goes into, a bar that's predominantly, black people in there and calls them something out their name. Does that happen? No, that's not happening because what would happen to that dude? Or that person or reverse role. Black guy goes into a biker bar or wherever it is. And, and that same situation happens, it's just the day and age that we live in, Mike.
And think about the effect then that has on the discussions that we need to have, as a country where it's almost gotten to the point where people are just, one, I think, afraid to say anything because, as you see, when someone is literally reporting a crime, that makes people jump down their throats. And then we have the dynamic of the things that people are saying are so ugly. And you're right, they're said behind the safety of their keyboard, things that they would never, ever say to somebody in public. And it ruins any dialogue or any discourse in it, and it takes it to a very ugly place. A really good friend of ours, and we're going to keep her name away from it, although I am going to be hounding her on a daily basis to come on the show because I think she's awesome. When I talked to her, she knew what she was talking about, really well spoken, and it was actually had a lot of candor about some things that have been going on, and what was really interesting, I started talking to her. She a really strong Trump supporter, very vocal kind of about it. And I knew this was something that I wanted to get her 2 cents on, of just, being a Trump supporter. Because one of the things, this was this is maybe a couple months ago, I went down on a whim to the Trump rally that was up here in Lewis Center. And I was like, what? I want to go and talk with some people. A lot of what we hear on the news is very much put through that filter of Trump supporters are this, Trump supporters are that. So I thought it was really important to go, okay, let's get some information. Let's actually talk with people. And one of the number one things that they were talking about was, we hate the fact that everyone lumps us in and thinks we're all racist. They were actually really quick to the draw to acknowledge, like, listen, we absolutely know there are some people, there's people within our group that are really, really racist, but they're the vast minority. And because they're so vocal and because the media kind of jumps onto it, we all get lumped into it, which really takes away from their message that they believe, and that people don't really understand what all this is about. And so when I was kind of hearing this, I'm like, hey, I want to talk to this person. And one of the fascinating things that this person said was, they go, what was interesting, that even before it got really out of hand, when they first started putting out their support about being a Trump supporter, literally they said they started getting messages from people, literally, Leon, people they have not talked to in years. And they started saying, I thought I knew you. I didn't realize you were a racist. You should be ashamed of yourself. And literally she was just like, it came out of left field. And then the dynamic that she said that started happening was that, I felt like I needed to start defending myself. I started getting really, really angry. And then it doubled down. Then they started going harder, at her, and then made her dig her heels in a little bit more. And she'll be the first person to admit that okay, maybe, that maybe she got out of hand a little bit. Not even out of hand was the right word. I can't remember what she used, but that, okay, there's some things that she wishes she maybe would have said that she could have taken back a little bit. And a lot of it really was a product of just how bad things have gotten, and her defending herself. And then all of a sudden it breaks into this negative cycle of, well, then people are making fun of her. It doesn't feel safe. So then they run back and to a bunch, basically people that feel the same way. And then that echo chamber then starts. I'm only listening to things, hearing certain things that validate this belief. And then it's like the same thing on the other side. And then we get this tribal kind of mentality. And then it just got way out of hand. And this is one person. This is something that is going on every single, not every single, but like Facebook, everywhere, Twitter, these wars that have broken out. We talked last week with our good friend Andy, who was saying that we've been friends, all these friends for 20 years, sometimes more, 28 years. And we had situations where people may have slept with someone else's girlfriend, or at least even close. But that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough to destroy friendship. But this election has just taken things to a whole new level. And it seems like, and once again, it seems like everything started with race, and then it just went from there. And this is, once again, it's one sample, but this is what I think is going on across this country. And that's why I think why race was such a salient topic for this episode, and our first big episode of diving into something, because it really does seem to be it's what instigated and started everything. So yeah, we got a long way to go, I think, as a country, because there's a lot of problems that are facing this country, and if we're not talking at all, it makes it almost impossible. Leon, I love your style, because you're kind of an independent dude. Literally, if you were to put me on the spot and go, hey man, am I Democrat or Republican? I don't think I could answer that question. I don't think I really know, because you are really, really independent. What is your, watching things over the last 8 years, what does it kind of look like to you? As a black man, as a very independent-minded person, but obviously very juiced in with the politics. What have you seen, whether it be with your own eyes, what you've seen on Facebook, what you've seen with your own friends?
You know, the political game is a nasty game. I mean, everything comes, from talking about, everything that Obama did and, things that are happening in today, and it's still getting blamed on Obama. I mean, the dude's been gone, for 2 years. So, the new head of household there can do, and change the things they want, and until people start talking, even like me and you are doing right now, but in mass groups, I mean, public opinion is not going to change. People are going to be set in their ways, attack ad after attack ad. That's the one thing I hate about, political time, is turning the TV on and you're just hearing how nasty this guy is. And then, you see like their opponent, they run an ad. Oh, how nasty they are. It's not even about people telling us what we want to hear, as the public. They're not telling us, the things that they're going to do and change for us. They're just sitting there attacking and running each other's names in the muck. And, you throw enough crap out there, something's eventually going to stick, whether it's true or not. It's just it's a weird world that we live in now. It's way different.
It's definitely a different world. And that's where it's really interesting when we look at, I mean, think about a lot of the problems that are facing this country. And you and I were talking about this. It's like, everyone's talking about addiction. Everyone's talking about crime. Economy is a big thing, but we also now have this whole thing about race in America. We equal opportunity, division. We have all these like major kind of issues, and it really seems as though we have to get along to solve these problems. And if we're not able to communicate in any way, shape, or form, there's no way we're going to be able to solve any of these problems. And that's where, like, Leon, like, think about like addiction. You were saying something really kind of salient about addiction. When you look at like the Black community, I mean, really, how long has heroin been a problem in a Black community, especially like inner city Black America?
Oh, I mean, as long as we've been probably kids.
Yeah. I mean, literally, it's been a problem forever. And one of the things that you said, it was like, nobody was talking about this heroin problem, 5 years ago. It really wasn't until it started hitting the suburbs, then when all of a sudden heroin became like this giant issue. And you're not, once again, you're not a very outspoken guy. You always try to be very kind of down the center, but that was one of the probably the most poignant things that in our conversations you had was, Mike, it didn't matter until white people in the suburbs basically started dying. I mean, honestly, like how does that feel? You're a parent now, and once again, you grew up in the suburbs, but yet, you have a perspective of both parts. What does that mean to you as a Black man when you say that it didn't matter until it hit the white suburbs?
I mean, it's true. I mean, you see what all kinds of things have done to, the minority communities. Until it really, seriously, until it hit home, it wasn't even getting reported on the news. I mean, you think about the news coverage on things now, and like I said, I'm not, trying to, poke the bear on one side or the other. I'm just giving my opinion when it comes to it, when, in the suburbs, K through 12, we didn't even, didn't get along with some kids in school. They want to call you certain names, didn't get along with people from the inner city because we went to the suburbs, oh, you're an Uncle Tom, you're a sellout, you talk too good. That's the stuff that we heard from, our peers that, look just like us. But yet we're not cool enough to come play on the basketball court with you, didn't get, but until, in the 80s, the crack was running rampant, across the nation. And a lot of, lower class neighborhoods and all those things. And where was their help? Trying to get substance abuse, throw the money towards that, it's an interesting topic, that, we could talk all day about, the war on drugs in America, that's a whole episode right there, but.
Well, literally, the UN, I think I posted this on the Gray Matters Radio Facebook website. The UN roundly declared the war on drugs an absolute and utter failure. If anything, they basically look at not only did it not do anything to stop the flow of drugs, which it's really only increased. It actually is created because of the sanctions, because of the way the war on drugs have been fought in a lot of these countries where a lot of the drugs are being manufactured and trafficked. It's made the situation worse, the socioeconomic issues. They're literally there's a great documentary out there on Netflix. And what it did, it followed drug traffickers on one side, then it followed people that lived on a border on the other side. And one of the things that they said, they were following this guy who was a drug trafficker, and he had kids. He was a really religious guy. And the documentarian asked him, hey, listen, you can't help but denote the irony that you're a father, you are a very religious man, yet you are trafficking a substance that is killing, millions of people. And he goes, I know that. But the main problem is that I have no options. Literally, you mentioned I'm a father, and that we don't have jobs over here. I can't get a job that's going to support my family. This is my only option that I have. If I could make a living and do something else, I completely would. But I can't. And so this is what I do. And that's something that I think people really don't want to understand about the socioeconomics of everything. Think about the 7,000 person strong march that's coming up from Guatemala. The Mexican president, or the president-elect today challenged Trump, Canada, and some of the other Latin American countries that, this is a socioeconomic issue, and that we need to address the underlying socioeconomic issues to fix this, basically. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening. The analogy that I used the other day with somebody was, it's like, if we don't fix that problem, we could build a wall. We could build a wall 3,000 feet high. The problem is, though, building a wall and not doing anything about the reason why it's happening is like the firefighters putting a fire out while an arsonist is still inside pouring gas on the fire. We have to address it from both angles. But the problem is, though, in our soundbite society where we want instantaneous results, we don't want to look at solutions that are probably going to take a while to work. It's a sad truth that a lot of people growing up, it could be inner city America, it could be inner city Latin America. Any solution that we're going to come up with is going to take a generation to fix. And that's a tough pill, I think, for a lot of Americans to swallow. Like, okay, we need to spend millions and millions of dollars to fix something, and we're not going to see the results directly. But that's what it's going to take. It doesn't work like that. We don't like that. I mean, heck, it maybe last a presidential cycle before they're saying that we spent billions of dollars on something and it didn't work. But I mean, heck, look at the war on drugs. We spent billions of dollars and we know that shit don't work.
Yep.
I mean, come on, we're serious. So I think, and once again, bring it back down to the state of race relations and state of relations. We can't even communicate about it. I mean, think about how many facets there are to all these problems, and we can't even have one conversation about anything without people jumping down each other's throats. So it's like, how are we going to talk about this at all?
Aren't we all the same anyway, though? If you cut your arm, what color are you if you cut? Pink and you bleed, right?
Exactly. I mean, honestly, it's part of me is something I always kind of thought about. My wife and I were watching, I don't know if you've watched it, all that Mr. Rogers documentary. And it just kind of started going into his viewpoints and what he believed. And that's kind of the generation that we kind of grew up with. And it was like, hey, we're all the same. We're all kind of equal. And almost like we were, at least sometimes I almost felt like we were almost taught to be almost like too colorblind about things. And that none of these things existed. And then all of a sudden finding out like, no, that was kind of not very realistic. And that, there is a lot of this going on, but now we've seen this shift way in the other kind of direction, and it's just, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we were, I don't know, almost like too naive, Leon.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, well, when you're a kid, most of the time, I talk about this all the time, you're kind of sheltered because, you do a lot of things within the community that you're from, at least back then, I mean, hell, the freeway system, around the city now is crazy. Remember it was 71 was 2 lanes when we were kids. So the dynamic has even changed, but it's different. It's a different time. But when you grew up in a small community like we did, a small suburban community, you go on a field trip, and it could have been going downtown or to Groveport. I remember it felt like a journey on a school bus going to Groveport, but knowing that looking now as an adult, it was just around, down the highway, so, when you're definitely sheltered as a kid, coming up, which is actually kind of good. I mean, I think, as a kid, now it's hard being a kid because there's way too much information out there at your fingertips that is just a click away. What do you want to know? We actually had to go to the library, look in the Dewey Decimal System and, find a book on the shelf, so, I mean, they don't even have to do that now.
Words I still don't even know.
I mean, for real, but it's crazy though, what I'm saying? Now, I mean, you just, hey, what are you looking for? Boom. All right, you go right here, section 207, shelf, 4, book 16. It's crazy, but it's just a plethora. So I guess that's the part of change too. We got to grow and learn how to, use that in the manner that, works and that is moving forward, so.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, Obama talked a lot about it, this political tribalism, I think, as he kind of said it, and that you can pick and choose what you want to listen to. Think about remember growing up, think about Tom Brokaw, Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather, Peter Jennings. Could you name if any of them were Democrat, Republican?
Couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the whole point. There's a stark difference between reporting the news and then being the news or giving an opinion on the news. And I think that's part of the problem that we have now is that people now reporting, not reporting the news, they're just giving their opinion on things. And that's a very dangerous thing because now, and it makes sense. I mean, if you, just like our one friend was saying, is that when you feel as though you're isolated and if anything almost exposed by a certain belief that you have, you're going to kind of gravitate towards groups of people or places that make you feel like I'm being heard. Hey, they're just like us. Problem is, though, the way news is now, you're only going to get one side and one perspective of things. And information is everything. We literally construct our entire viewpoint of reality based on the information that we get. I mean, as a therapist, I mean, literally a lot of the therapy that, I'll do with my clients is it's about addressing our beliefs and what we base our beliefs on and how radically our view of the world can change based upon faulty information. There's some research they did a while ago. Came out, I don't know, maybe like 4 years ago or so. And it was kind of like accidental research, which to me, I think is sometimes more powerful than any other type of research because it's not like they were trying to prove something. This one was a dissertation research and their research was all messed up. They didn't really have any data and they're like, crap, what do I do? And so they had like demographic data. And so they started just running random analyses. And what they kind of came up with, it was for political science. And so they had information they had people classified in what they called buffer zones. And what a buffer zone was people growing up in an area, where they had zero contact, zero communication with people in a lower SES kind of area. And what was interesting was that people who tended to grow up in areas like that tended to hold on to more what they I think delineated as like libertarian beliefs, or more particularly the belief that poor people were poor because they just didn't work hard enough, or they were lazy, or they just didn't want to work hard at all. And it was really fascinating because I don't know about you, Leon, but you know, the poor people that I kind of know, I don't think there's much choice kind of there. It's kind of
right.
But think about, you know, as a black man, you know, when you see that narrative, if we're being honest here and having an honest conversation, would you think it's fair to say, Leon, that there's almost like the tie-in of poor black people, and it's choice. They're lazy, entitled, and it's almost like it's dehumanizing. It's like, well, if you're choosing to be poor and you're choosing to live in inner city and be a gangbanger or do drugs or sell drugs, well, then it's your choice, and then it's almost like you've earned it. You don't deserve to be treated like a human. I mean, is that just me, or, you know, I mean, what are your thoughts on that one?
I mean, you know, some people just don't have the means to even get out and go, you know, do certain things. And then once again, tying back to, you know, if you never leave your neighborhood and you never know what's outside your neighborhood, then you're going to get trapped in what's going on in your neighborhood. I mean, you know, you got to cross the railroad track sometime in life, you know, if you really want to see something else per se. You know, there's a mixed notion that, you know, that a lot of, you know, African Americans, you know, are lazy. They don't want to go to work. They just want to be on welfare. You know, they just want to get this, you know, they just want to have, you know, multiple kids. So they got multiple baby daddies, you know, just getting that check. I mean, but it goes on all sides of the fence, too, though. You know, there's a lot of, you know, white Americans out there living below the poverty line, you know, living in a smashed up, you know, trailer, you know, whatever the case might be. You know, what's the projects? The projects could be in the inner city, but the projects could be, you know, on Hillcrest Trailer Park, you know, out in the middle of nowhere. You know, it's unfortunate, you know, that, but until we start having true, real, honest conversations and stop looking at people as a color or, you know, a certain faith background. I mean, you know, until we start really just seeing people as people, you know, it goes back to our group of friends. We always knew if you're cool, you're cool. If you're not cool, you know, if you're not cool, then, hey, you're just not cool. I'm probably not going to come hang out with you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, why else can, you know, we all split up for, you know, many years and then come back and start hanging out and doing like it was like yesterday, you know, but we're all adults, you know, but,
it's
you know,
when we all come back around, we're not cool anymore. That's what's weird. We were cool, you know, you were Lee Dizzle. I was Mike D.
Yeah.
Now I'm just Mike. I know. I used to be cool. I don't when that switch happened, but hey, but we're all not cool at the same time though. So that's why it all works out, Leon.
It's because we're all dads, you know. We're all dads and got kids and wives, and you know we're working. You know we're contributing to society. You know we're doing what we're supposed to do. I mean, we're living life.
Well, and that's where it's like that's what makes me like kind of so sad, you know, a little bit because you know it's. You know, we all influenced each other, I like to think. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Like, I think we all just kind of rubbed off each other, our cultures, what we liked, what we didn't like. I remember, you know, it was always cool back then because, like, Thanksgiving, it'd be like, oh, you do your thing with your family, but then it's like, all right, let's go hang out with the boys, you know, afterwards, or Christmas. And, like, I remember eating, you know, Thanksgiving at, you know, my house, you know, and then it'd be like, yo, Mike D, can you come pick me up? GTA was always busted.
It was always busted. That thing never started.
It's always busted. So it's like, you know, Mike, where are you going? I got to pick Leon up. And Thanksgiving, like, yeah, sorry, Mom. You know, I got to go. It's but then I'd go over like your house, and of course your mom would be cooking. Yeah. You know, and then I remember it was one your mom was making collard greens and like chitlins. And it was like, well, that's definitely not what we were eating at my house. We were in like chestnut stuffing and mashed potatoes. And I remember like, you know, Miss Cradle, hey, like, well, can I have some of that? You know, hey, what are chitlins? And I remember you come in and go, like, I ain't gonna eat that shit.
Yeah, I'm like,
you know, but he's like, oh, Mike, put some Franks on there, and it's like that, like, oh wow, that's really good. And then like having like this legitimate meshing of cultures, like literally to this day, I make collard greens because the collard greens your mom, you know, made, and I don't mind chitlins. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna go out and eat them all the time, but they taste good. I will absolutely enjoy them, but. Even just think about like the music we listen to, how we dressed. I mean, hell, if you see a picture of Mike D and, you know, senior year before I started hanging out with you guys and then look at me like, year and a half later, Mike D has the frosted tips and looks like a busted up Slim Shady. It's like,
oh yeah.
And it wasn't like we're trying to do too much, but we all played into each other. We all learned from each other. And to me, that was always the beauty of America, was this blending of cultures and celebrating each other's cultures. And we were able to do that because there was no barriers, or there was no race. It was just my culture, your culture. Let's talk about it. And then we, just mesh. But then I don't, what that makes me sad is like, I don't think that exists, anymore. I look at my daughter, growing up, and I worry, and I look at your kids, and I look at it, is that type of time period really exist anymore? Or is that just something that was in the past and we've swung so far in a direction now? I mean, gosh, like, I don't know if you watched the Eagles game this weekend. I'm trying to like ban it, from my memory, because it was a bit of a shit show. I mean, now how do you lose a 17-point, lead in the fourth quarter? But hey, this ain't a sports show, so I'm gonna leave that one behind. But in the beginning of the game, Malcolm Jenkins and Eric Reed literally got like in a drug out brawl, and literally the whole beef was about Eric Reed felt as though Malcolm Jenkins sold out. They basically felt as though Malcolm Jenkins used the Black Lives Matter and the NFL protesting to his own advantage, basically to start his own kind of charity. And even Colin Kaepernick busted in on it. And it's like, gosh, it's like, what do you do with that? It's like, even if two guys that were literally at the forefront of trying to help, young black people and black communities are attacking each other for what they believe and whether or not they're really into the cause. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like it's like, Leon, do you think we're a bridge too far? Is there a way of mending these fences again?
I mean, there's always ways to mend anything. I mean, it comes with open dialect and talking, but I don't know when we got so far away that you can't have your own opinion. When unless you conform and think the way I think, I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm going to go out and I'm going to blast you and, publicly, assassinate your character. I mean, that's unfortunately the day and age we live in, just once again, man, going back to what you talk about is like, us growing up and, the blending of cultures and all those things, like during our time. I mean, yeah, you look at those times compared to now, it's a day and night difference. I mean, it's more getting back to, your segregated areas and, these people hang out here, these people hang out here. And I've traveled the country, working in the industry that I work in. I've been all over the place. I've got to, travel and see a lot of different things. And I get the question posed to me. I happen to be doing a project and, girls from Kentucky, small town, didn't grow up with, too many minorities in their community. And she asked me a serious question. She was like, I don't know. Going back to, can you ask someone a question and not offend somebody? She asked me, she said, hey, do you ever get nervous? Or are you worried, like when you go places and you're literally the only black guy in here? Like, and the eyes are looking at you. I'm like, nah, what am I going to get? If I feel uncomfortable, then obviously I'll leave, but I like to give, people, the benefit of the doubt that, generally good people are out there, and, people, are open and, are willing to let people come out, that might not be from their area, but people are scared of what they don't know. You don't grow up with something or you're not around a certain thing, then you're not going to know anything about that. It might make you worried, but once again, man, people are people, man. If you're good, you're good. If you're bad, you're bad. Don't matter black, white, or other.
Now, if you traveled, have you personally seen more things being said and done? It's racist comments or just kind of even like the backhanded racism, like, well, it's not my fault. That's not racist. I'm just being honest. I mean, traveling the country, being in the industry you are, because you're in the tech industry, which, I imagine, it's predominantly or a majority more African American or white, kind of industry. I mean, have you seen any increase at all?
I I don't see it. I mean, I don't personally see it that often when I'm out, just because I'm normally, when I'm traveling, I'm kind of in a professional setting. So, I guess most people, whether they were thinking that or not, they're not going to say it because we're at work. You know what I mean? But I'll give you a really good example. Just happened just in August, and we were so stunned that we didn't even report the incident. But you hear every day about, Ubers and Lyfts and certain situations that happen. So, me, twin brother, couple other friends, we all go out to Las Vegas, pull up at the airport, order a Uber. We wait out there for 20 minutes for the Uber to get there. Guy rolls up, parks. He rolls the window down part way, part ways behind dark tinted windows. Looks at us. I said, "Hey, you're such and such, you're our driver, start wheeling our bags to the back." And the dude got out the car, looked us up and down, and got back in the car and drove off. He said, "Oh, I'm just checking you guys out," and then left. He didn't even give us a ride. I mean, that just that happened 2 months ago. So it don't matter where you go. You're always going to have to, maybe deal with certain situations. And that's as a black guy. I guarantee it happens to you. I mean, I guarantee it happens to many Americans out there every day. It doesn't have to be just, being black and having situations happen. It's just, I don't know, man. It's a different time, Mikey.
Well, even like you see it a lot with Latino, Hispanic. You're seeing a lot with whole speak English. There was one, it was crazy. It was in Texas, of course, and it was like Latino on Latino racism, where it was like I think it was like a Latin American, like Guatemalan person didn't speak any English. And then the cashier, the customer service person came over, and basically you need to speak English. And then they were Spanish themselves or Mexican, I think, themselves. And it's like, that's something that we're also kind of seeing. I think we're seeing a scapegoating of groups of people as the reasons why we're having lots of problems. And then you tie in the fact that there's a political party of people where probably maybe 2% of them or 3% of them are probably racist, and they probably all were completely racist. Not like anything changed. But then I do think probably the media then, because it's a story, because media has become about sensationalism, that they're probably just attaching onto it and making the 3% a very loud 3% that gets lumped into that, making people think that this is just everybody. But yet no one wants to admit that. No one wants to say that because you're like, well, they really are that way. But it's like, how do we really know? How do we really know how many people? All I know, and that's the whole point of the show, is we can't trust what our politicians are telling us. We can't trust what the media is basically telling us. Fake news doesn't just exist on the liberal or the conservative side. They're all completely full of shit. They're all lying. They're just going after ratings. And so
for sure.
That, we have to sit there and this is why you and I are having this conversation, because the media is saying one thing, and then we're all being reactive as a result. Just like our one friend who was a Trump supporter and got labeled a racist, and they've never said a racist thing in their entire lives. It's like, okay, let's talk to a black man going, hey, are people really being this racist? Have you noticed a difference? Do people that report these same things? And I think a lot of what we're almost seeing is that, Mike D, shit hasn't changed. It's always been there. It's not any better or worse. This is just really what the country is about, in that it's almost like pointing out, like, okay, maybe if, people start talking to everyone and kind of finding out that, okay, maybe we're magnifying a lot of these problems that we're having, and that in all actuality, maybe, things aren't as bad as we kind of, are making it out to be. I mean, as a black man, like, what do you think that would mean? If people really learned that, okay, maybe racism is being played up. I mean, it's already shitty. It's not to say that it's not going on, but with all these incidences and how it's pitting everybody against each other, what do you think that would mean for the country?
I mean, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of tension. that's why, I stay in my lane, man. Do what I do, see both sides of the coin, Um, it's an interesting dynamic when it comes, down to being, a black dude that's, I guess you would say, from the suburbs. Because, there's plenty of times where I've even gone out and they're like, oh, you shouldn't do this. You're a black guy. Why shouldn't I skateboard? Why shouldn't I snowboard? Is that you have to be a certain color to do those type of things? And those things, those are little incidents like that happens all the time. Oh, this black guy's faster because he's got an extra leg muscle. Racism is never going to go anywhere. You're never going to get rid of it. But it's just about teaching, your kids, if you have kids, or the younger generation, to be open-minded, be willing to, open your mind a little bit. Don't be so set in your ways. You go through life long enough, you'll realize that shit's the same. Don't matter which side of the coin it is.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, where do we go from here? As a country, because I think when we're so divided, and that's like, once again, the scariest thing I keep coming back to is that it's one thing if we can communicate and have like honest discussions about differences and about what's going on in this country. But when we're not able to talk anymore, where you can say one thing and then there's like 3 jumps to you're a racist, or what do we do with that? Because there's a lot of people that are hurt on both sides. I can't even imagine what it's like to be Latino, African American in this country right now. Because even though I'm sure you always known racism exists, when you see the crap that people are putting out behind their keyboard and how ugly it is, knowingly what a lot of people are thinking, even if they would never say that to you in person and know that that's what people are thinking. And then on the other side, people being so angry about being called a racist who aren't a racist. But then you have people who feel empowered, that people that are racist feeling empowered in everything. It seems like we're in this dynamic now to where, what do we do? How do we start healing ourselves as a nation? Because, we have to communicate. We have to find some way of bridging these gaps. I mean, if you really think about like Chicago, Leon. It's my wife and I were in Chicago. Oh gosh, about like a month and a half or so ago, and I was talking with my good buddy, who hopefully I think might be on their show next week. Another African American gentleman actually lived in Chicago, and we were talking about the crime problem, and he even agreed, that this is such a socioeconomic issue, and that any solution is going to take, and it's everywhere. It's not just Chicago. It's all across the country. It's going to take such a big undertaking. It's going to take such people to sit down and start actually having honest conversations about what really is at the cause of it, and then what can we do about it. And it's going to take big programs. And when you look at our current political body and do you honestly think that conversation is going to happen?
Oh, never.
Hell no.
How many minorities you got in there? First of all,
yeah.
You can't get it. You can't see it. Someone's out. You can't see the other side unless you walk in a person's shoe. That's why it takes people that actually have walked the walk. To give you the information that you need to help fix things. It can't just be one person that's like, oh, this is what you need. This is the perfect solution. We're going to give you this program. This will help you. No, it takes people in the community. People standing up and wanting to exercise their voice. Unfortunately, many people don't go out and even exercise the basic right and vote.
I think it's scary right now. The one person I was talking about that was thinking about being on the show, it's out of that fear of, what if I did go on and start saying how I really felt about things? What if I really did come out there? And it's like that fear of retribution. Think about like all the Antifa. Think about what they call the far right, the alt, the alt right. Think about Black Lives Matter. Think about the extreme groups that we have going on right now. And it really is almost, people feel so unheard, so marginalized, so just no one's going to listen to me. It's like, fuck it. I'm just going to be as violent and angry and as loud as humanly possible. And I see that in my practice all the time. I see people so angry where I'm sitting there going like, whoa, like, let's slow it down a little bit. Let's start having some conversations about this. And, and literally they're yelling and screaming. They're trying to talk with their families. I literally had one family call me because they thought they may need to hospitalize their child because they were so angry about something that they saw in the news. And when you kind of go like, well, hey, we need to kind of quiet down a little bit, or hey, we need to start having a rational discussion. It's like, well, fuck that. They're not going to have a rational discussion. We have been having a rational discussion for God knows how long. They're not going to. So this is what we're going to do. It's time to scare the shit out of people. And then do we think it's surprising now that congressmen and senators on both sides of the aisle are all reporting the same exact thing? Feel like, they can't go out to dinner. They have some of them like saying their wives are sleeping with guns because they're afraid someone's going to come after them.
And you shouldn't have to do that. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And it's like, and we're in there, and I get it if you're that angry and feeling like we're not being heard, but the problem is that that's the only way they win. It's the only way the powers that be win if we can't talk and we're all angry at each other. It's like, it seems like, when we were watching Looney Tunes as kids, when like Elmer and Bugs Bunny would get in that fight, and then like Bugs will kind of like reel him in, and they've got little dust devil, and Bugs would just step out, and Elmer is fighting himself. That's how you almost feel sometimes. Is like, is that like the end game? Is that the end goal? Is just to get us to be angry at each other and hate each other until we basically just, it's like we're like completely distracted. It's like they're lighting a flaming bag of shit on the porch while we're stomping it out. They're coming through the back door and robbing us blind.
Well, yeah, that's what it is, though. You put enough information out there, whether it be fake news, real news. You got people thinking. You got people talking. And whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing, the conversation's happening. So what is the power of news? I posed this question to you the other day. What can you believe nowadays? You want the answer to one idea. You do a simple search. You got 100 different articles telling you 100 different things.
Yeah.
So, where can a person just get their real daily news? And tell me the stuff that I want to know. Some of the stuff, most people don't even want to hear about. I exercise my right to turn that show off.
And that's like fascinating. You nailed. It's like, do people really not want to believe what it is they're believing? It's that cognitive dissonance, as we call it. Is that when you're thinking something and what you feel on the inside is different than what you're seeing on the outside, like in the environment. What do you do with that? Do you it's called accommodation and assimilation. Do we kind of like restructure our existing beliefs and adjust it for this new information? Do we try to like assimilate it in, just kind of like mesh it, try to find a way of like rationalizing it? Or do we just reject it wholeheartedly? It's fake news. That's not the real story. And that's what I think we do. It all begins and ends with information. And that's where I think the power of conversations that we're having is, because if you really want to reality test what's really going on, talk with somebody.
Right.
If you really want to know about what's going on in inner cities and Black communities, talk with someone.
Go in there.
It can't be that hard to find someone that
right.
Talk to a Latino. Talk to them. Did they come here? When did they come here? To their parents? Talk to a Latin American. That's all you have to do. Learn for yourself. And it's amazing. And I realize a lot of people maybe haven't had it's different experiences of we've had. Like Leon, you said you've been in a lot of different environments. You went to college in North Dakota.
Burr.
Or South Dakota, right?
No, it was North Dakota.
North Dakota, yeah.
And it shout out to Bismarck.
It was cold, whatever it was.
It was so cold. Yep.
I mean, with your job, you travel. With me, I've been I grew up in Ohio. Lived in Texas. Traveled all across this country. I talk with people from all different parts of the world, and that's one of the things that I think what shaped my viewpoint of things is okay. There's a lot to kind of learn. Like I remember when I worked at the Huckleberry House in Columbus. It was a place where it's like this Victorian house where kids could come in off the street, and for like at least 2 days we could kind of watch over them, like some crisis intervention. And I remember a kid came in and there was a shooting in the area, and he was involved with it in some way, shape, or form. He wouldn't tell us anything, and I remember just talking to him about growing up and why he's made the choices. And mind you, this kid was like 11, dude. And when I asked him, I was like, man, like, why gangs? Help me understand as a white guy from the suburbs. Help me understand like what's going on. And one of the things he said was that, listen, man, like, you don't got options. It's not like we have a lot of role models that are kind of helping us, realize there are different ways of living life. You look at, okay, there's things that you want because you think those things are going to make you happy, and the only people that have it are the gangs. And on top of that, if you're not part of them, you really expose yourself to get really victimized really bad. And he goes, we don't have choice. And I remember talking to him about like, dude, like, even if you get done with school, like you have like scholarships you can get. There's student loans you can get. And he isn't. He's like, what are those? And that's not fucking choice. That's not, I'm choosing to do this. No, that's growing up in an environment where you don't even know. And,
yeah. I mean, that's go ahead.
Oh yeah, even like, and imagine like, let's say you grew up in a racist household. I mean, if that's what they believe, that's all you're going to believe.
Right. I mean, that's the hard thing, is that, children, they're subjected to what's around them, what's influencing them. I mean, I remember as a kid, one of my kind of earliest memories of, someone saying, something racist to me, I might have been, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And a kid called me a porch monkey. You know what I'm saying? I remember first looking at the dude like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? And I went home, I said it to my mom, and I mean, you could see it in her eyes that she was, she was pissed off, you know what I mean? And she kind of gave me an explanation of what it was, like, oh, he shouldn't have called you that. And then she, went and gave the dude's dad a earful about it. I mean, so, that, I mean, if that's all or all you're around, and you never have anyone that instills that, you can be from a certain neighborhood, but you don't have to, choose to be the lifestyle of the neighborhood. There's a way out. A lot of people feel like they get trapped. Hey, I lived in this small place or small community. All I can do is go work here. You know what I'm saying? I have no option to go to school. Or the kids that, think that the only way they can go to college is to be good at football. I got to be a good, best football player I can be because I can get a scholarship, not thinking like, look, I can be the smartest kid in the school, and get a scholarship for academics. It doesn't have to be athletics, good or not, like you said, there's many ways, to make it, out, or to get an opportunity to progress and move forward as an adult.
And that's where it's like what you're saying, that humanizes these problems. That's not even a race thing. That's a socioeconomics. And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't really understand, that people, I think, automatically attach it to, oh, it's black, it's Hispanic. It's socioeconomics. It just happens to be these are the areas where it's predominantly one culture, one race or another. And what you're doing is you're humanizing it. You're talking about these are human beings. These are people, what they've been through. This is what their life is like. This is what they grew up with. And just like if they don't feel like they have a choice, we don't think, like, there's a lot of people that don't think they have a choice, or they did have a choice, that they're just making that choice because it's easier. And the only way that we start learning about that is we talk, we learn, we humanize, we realize we are all human beings. Some people were born into a situation that enabled them to have certain benefits. Some people were born into a situation that just frankly sucked. And And the thing is, it's affecting us all in some way, shape, or form. Charles Blow, he's I think he's a Washington Post columnist, I want to say. And he was saying he was on a CNN town hall debate, and it was interesting because, really prominent black guy in the community, and he was one of the first guys basically to say, he was talking about Black Lives Matters, and he's like, man, what do you expect's going to happen when you send police in an area to kind of basically hold the fort down? This is a socioeconomic thing. You're basically sending police in to hold the dam back and basically contain this concentrated poverty. And then you wonder why there's all these confrontations. The people they're policing are pretty much traumatized. They're traumatized. And this is the shit that basically kind of happens. And he's like, what is it going to take for people to realize that that's the issue that we have to fix? It's a socioeconomic thing. It's a systemic thing. No program technically is going to fix it. It's going to take a very wide sweeping, top-down viewpoint of this. Things that are going to be in the present, things that are going to be in the future. And one of the things he kind of broke down is like, he goes, man, no one wants to do anything about it now, but he goes, I'm willing to bet that, if in the suburbs, the crime that was happening in inner city was happening in the suburbs, he goes, I sure as shit, that stuff.
They're sending helicopters, shooting snow grenades and everything. It's going to be crazy.
It would be dealt with instantaneously, right?
Instantaneously.
Yeah, and so, and that's where once again it comes down to action. We got to start believing in one another again. We got to start understanding that we're all here together, black, white, Hispanic, poor, rich, whatever. We're being made to think that we're all we're all the enemy, and it's like, no, we're not. And it starts with these conversations. It starts with humanizing everyone again. If we humanize each other, we care about each other. That was one of the things that with Anthony Bourdain, he was one of my huge influences. And one of the things that he said the purpose of his show was that there's so many things that you hear about, whether it be in this country, internationally, where things happen. You hear about it on the news, and you're like, I don't give a shit. His whole thought was that if you see these people for who they are, their lives, their family, what they care for, you realize that they're not much different than you. And that, if you know who they are and they are humanized, you'd actually care about them. And maybe the next time something happened, you would maybe demand something would change, something would happen. And I think we all need to do that right now. This is where we're at as a country. And I think if, once again, we all humanize each other again, then we start caring about one another again. And when we see these awful things happening, then maybe we demand people do something about it. We change the debate. Politics, and the media, it's symbiotic. They're giving us what we're demanding, just like on TV. Whatever TV shows that are out, that they're out because that's what people want. The music that's being released, that's what people want. Our tastes change. They change what food they offer. And so that's just all what's happening right now in the media and the politics. It's easy to point the finger at the politicians and tell them, demand them make change, or point the finger at each other. But it's like, no, we can make change tomorrow. If we start demanding something different, if we start having a different discussion, they'll then play off of that. And so that's my challenge to everyone listening. Every week, we're going to be talking about some new issues. Sometimes we're going to be continuing on one. But the bottom line is it's taking something that we're talking about and putting it into action. If you're listening to this show, you're like Leon, wanting to be part of this show, you're here and listening because you realize that shit is really fucked up, and it ain't going to get better unless we do something about it. And it is on us. It is on us to make that change. And so that's our responsibility. We can't point the finger anymore. We may not have made the mess, but you know what? I think we're responsible for cleaning it up. We have no choice. We can't move forward unless we absolutely do. And so in regards to race, I challenge anybody and everybody. If you work with someone from a different race, a different culture, talk to them. Ask them about their family, their values, where they came from, how they got here, their family lineage, whatever. If you have a question about race, ask it. If I can ask Leon, hey, dude, what's up with that gel that you put on your hair? What is ashy skin? I mean, come on. Like, if I can do that, if Leon can ask me, dude, why you eat so many bagels, Mike? I mean, seriously, it's like, if we can have those, we can have it and make a joke out of it. It's cool. but talk, listen, don't ask and have to say something back. Just listen, say thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe they ask you the same thing. And I think if we can start there, folks, that's a place where we can start. Leon, any final words, any final thoughts? We're obviously going to be continuing this discussion. Any final words, any final thoughts, just to kind of put a bottle on what we've been going over?
Yeah, no, just same thing, man. Out there, you see somebody, ask the question, start the conversation, say hi. One thing that I always do, and my wife laughs about it all the time. If I'm out and about, and you know how when you're walking past somebody, you make eye contact, I say hi to everybody. I don't, it doesn't matter. I just say hi. And, some people say it back, some people don't, but, be kind to your fellow man or woman, hey, like you said, have the conversation, don't know something, ask something, don't be afraid to ask, because the power, the power is out there is, just asking the questions, getting the knowledge. You don't know until you know, and you can't know unless you ask. I always say in the IT world, there's no stupid question. There's only stupid times when people don't ask the question. That's it.
There are some stupid questions, right?
Oh, yeah, kind of. Okay.
But no, you're absolutely right, man. There are no dumb questions, and I encourage everyone, get involved. Go on our Facebook page, Gray Matters Radio. Go to graymattersradio.com. I want to hear about what did you learn. Anyone who's listening, go and talk to people. Let me know what you heard. I want to hear about it. We can talk about it on the radio, and because I think that's the most powerful part of technology. Social media has been something that's supercharged the division in this country, but it's also something we can flip the script on them. And just like it's been something that has, once again, divided us, we can use it to unite us in a very quick, powerful way. So I want to hear about it. I want everyone involved. This is less a podcast radio show and more of a movement. As long as we're not having technical difficulties, the movement is herky-jerky, but that's life, right? Shit breaks and you pick right back up again, right?
That's right.
Well then, so I guess that concludes our second fragmented second episode of Gray Matters Radio. Leon, thank you so much. I hope we have you back on a lot more.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have Leon back on, and we will definitely be continuing discussions. So, it's been real. Glad everyone kind of joined in, and I will see you guys in the gray. You guys have a good night, and till next time.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gray Matters Radio with Michael Devine. For more episodes and information, visit us online at graymattersradio.com. Join the conversation by following Gray Matters Radio on Facebook and Twitter. Gray Matters Radio is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more live episodes of this and other great shows, download the free HC Universal Network app at hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, remember, think about the gray.